Mick Wallace, 10 minutes.
Thanks, Cahill. Minister, it's disappointing to hear the government position on this. I don't necessarily take it as 100% your position on it. I find you engaged well with this issue, but I'm sorry to say that your government's approach, for as long as I've come in here, has left just too much to be desired. I mean, it was at the height of the refugee crisis, and in spite of the concerns raised by human rights watchdogs such as Irish Human Rights and Equality Commission, the previous Fine Gael Labour government chose to actively tighten the net on refugees, rather than. And I mean, it's not barriers we should be putting in their way. Minister, I mean, I just find it a bit disheartening. You said in your piece that the financial impact of the proposal in the bill doesn't really take on board the challenges of the country. Look, it's not an either or case. We know that the government should be actively involved in providing housing and facilities for our own people, and in many cases it's not doing it because you have left it to the private sector to supply housing. So obviously housing would have to be supplied if we allow people into the country, but the numbers are so small, and this bill is actually only dealing with dependents. So they wouldn't be moving into a different house than where their families already, if they have actually found a place. It doesn't stack up, and I mean, God help me. I mean, I find it just mad that this money message thing just prevents just about any opposition position nowadays. Because if you want to make improvements, you know, very often they do cost money. But I mean, where's the joined-up thinking? I mean, I wish you were as concerned with the absolute scandal that's taken place in Nama, probably the biggest financial scandal in the history of the state. Over 20 billion has gone missing because of how they've handled their affairs, and no one wants to hold them to account. And we're worried about the cost of a few people that had a few relatives, family, or brothers or sisters coming around to families that have been put through the throes of war. I mean, it's not like as if we've nothing to do with it. Like, I mean, aside from anything else, I mean, we're still allowing Shannon to be used as a US military base. I know you don't want to talk about Shannon, Minister, but I mean, it's a fact. There is over 65 billion people on the planet displaced, and over half of them have been displaced because of war. It's nuts. I mean, I actually admire Trump's honesty. It was put to him there 2 weeks ago. Do you not think now you should stop giving arms to the Saudis because they're engaged in genocide in Yemen? And that it's really not on that the Americans should be continue supplying them with arms. And Trump says, not sure about that. What do you want them to do? Buy them from the Russians or the Chinese? Don't think so, he says. Tens of thousands of jobs at stake, he says, around the arms that are going to the Saudis. Yeah, and you know what? It's actually the same argument that's used here for allowing Shannon to be used as a military base. Oh, look at the jobs, all the jobs they bring in. We can't be frightening them away now. I got picked on by a fella that down in Ennis one time after we getting over the fence down there, and he says, stay with that place. He says, stay with that place. I sell sandwiches in there. He says, I sell sandwiches in there. So I'm not supposed to be highlighting the fact that the place has been used as a military base where the Americans go along and bomb the living daylights out of countries that create refugees that try and come across the Mediterranean and try to get to here with great difficulty. You wouldn't be well, you wouldn't. Now, Minister, you were talking about the UN there. I said, oh, this is not some Western power. I don't know whether Deputy Daly mentioned some Western power, was saying this, that or the other. I mean, sadly, I wish the UN was a really independent body. The UN, whether we like it or not, for all practical purposes, today is a puppet of the Western powers. That is the truth. In 2011, in Yemen, the UN, Obama wanted regime change in Yemen because the guy in Saleh wasn't prepared, wasn't able to implement neoliberal policies across the country of Yemen quickly enough for their liking. They threw him out, behind their own fella, Hadi, right? The internationally recognised government of Yemen, right? An American puppet, supported by the Saudis and supported by the UN. And the same UN, when Yemen was being destroyed by the Saudis, with US and UK support and French, when Yemen was being destroyed, they told us 2 years ago that there was 10,000, there was almost 10,000 people dead. They told us the same a year later, they told us the same a year after that. They said the same this year, only 10,000 were killed, they said. What are they like? Look at Minister, just a couple of simple things on the bill, right? I mean, the 2015 Act imposed a tight time frame of 1 year within which applications for family reunification could be made. The 1 year time frame has made it extremely difficult for applicants. They have to apply within 12 months of being granted status. Many applications fail due to the tragic fact that it is extremely difficult to actually locate family members who are left behind in war zones within this restrictive time frame. But myself and Deputy Daly know a refugee from Afghanistan. His father was killed. His brother was killed. And he's in Ireland now, and he has status. He doesn't know where his mother is. He doesn't know where his sisters are. How can he make reunification happen? How can the Irish state do it for him within your time restrictions? I don't think so. And I'll tell you what, his story wouldn't be an isolated one. Minister, we discussed yesterday, and I really hope that there's a serious look taken at it, but I really believe that you're going to have to look at other countries and not just prioritise Syria and Eritrea. As I said to the Minister yesterday, over 1.5 million people have returned to Syria now that things are somewhat normalising again, now that the government are actually getting control of the place and they're getting rid of the jihadists that were funded mostly by the US, Israel and the Saudis. And unfortunately, we have not been told the truth about Syria very much here. Much of the news that you'd have heard even on RTE, they used to quote the White Helmets and the Syrian Observatory as if they were independent entities out there. But when we eventually found out that they're being funded by the Americans and the Brits, they don't quote them quite so often now. The message coming out wasn't the true message, but it suited them. And we have people still, you wouldn't be well looking at Twitter and some of these Syrian groups. They obviously have a certain agenda in how they portray what's going on over there. Listen, some terrible things have happened there, no doubt about it. But terrible things are happening in other places too. And it would be good if Ireland had a more open door policy. It would be good if we took in a lot more people. The numbers we're talking about are so pathetically low. The notion that we couldn't, handle 10,000, 20,000 is ridiculous. The population of Gorey goes up 4 times in the summer. There's a population, I'd say, around the 5,000 mark in Gorey. It's about 20,000 in the summer. It manages. And we were not talking about bringing in 10 or 20,000 refugees and putting them all in the one place. The country, there was 8 million people in this country when the famine came in 1847. 8 million. There's plenty of room for people in Ireland. We're not a heavily densely populated country. We just need the will to help people that need our help and deserve it. God knows the Irish have gone all over the planet when they needed help, when they needed work, when they needed to break out of poverty themselves. We need a bit more of a warm reception for these people. Thank you.